Hallo miteinander, I'm Shady6, and this is Touhou Fugyouseki, Nightmare of Sleeping Girl. This is an RPG, a strategy RPG to be exact, and a very unconventional one at that. I would be completely stumped by it if it weren't translated, but surprisingly it is. I only say surprisingly because it feels obscure even by Doujin standards. I have only learned about this game from the forum thread of its English patch, and it still doesn't seem to be talked about terribly much nowadays. Does this perhaps entail that it totally blows? Nah, you wouldn't be seeing this video if it did. First thing we'll do here is deploying some more of our units and choosing ourselves a sub-mission in the Dream Gap. A what gap, you ask? I will explain shortly what this is all about, but for now, let us just pick the last of the easy peasy difficulty 1 missions I had left to defeat and recruit Wriggle Nightbug. At this point, let us cover the game's plot. It is, as expected, very typically Touhou. A mysterious culprit has let loose a sleep-inducing mist on the land of Gensokyo. This mist imprisons all the demons in their dreams. Only Yukari was able to resist this mist to a degree, and now she's rounded up the 5 most prominent human characters, Reimu, Marissa, Sakuya, Yomu, and Sanae, to help her wake up the afflicted demons and ultimately stop the villain. Said villain, by the way, is not Doremi Sweet, as fitting as that would be, for this game did not come out yesterday. It's existed for a couple of years. But yeah, this story explains the mission-based structure of the game that I mentioned. We want to invade Wriggle's dreams and wake her up, and for that, we must first lead our characters, whoever we want to use, into the Dream Gap. Once the required number of people has entered this gap, the mission will start. In our case, that would be 4. And here is our first battle. It was short and deadly, as the strongest fairy completely smashed this puny little rabbit. The presentation of this game might remind you a little of Fire Emblem, and that is indeed a series you could compare this to. The big question arises now: permadeath, yes or no? The answer, no. It is not like Fire Emblem in that regard. There is also no baby making, of course. Cause you know, this is Touhou, men are not allowed here. So this is the meat of the game, commanding your units, using their strengths to their fullest, and avoiding their weaknesses wherever you can. Sakuya, for example, can attack from a distance, but her hits aren't overly strong. Yomu, as a big contrast, has limited range, but is a true melee powerhouse. She really is, trust me on that. The reason that didn't do a whole lot is because spirits have a very high defense value. You are normally meant to use attacks of the magical element against them. Come to think of it, Yomu does have magic, but only in the form of her spell attack. Maybe that one would have been the better option to pick there. You need to know here, each character has a standard attack as well as a more powerful spell at their disposal. The reason why you might want to settle for the weaker move is because that spell also damages your character slightly on use. It is a system of risk versus reward. Yomu just disappeared through that portal. She's out of the game until we've gotten the rest of our units in there, which is something we want to do very quickly. You generally don't want your characters to stay on the board unnecessarily long, because of a certain gameplay mechanic. One of those very unconventional things about Touhou Fugyouseki. The mist that puts all the demons to sleep is present outside of missions, and it is very bad for our health. Meaning, every time you end your turn, your party flinches like it just did and takes a little bit of damage. This is unavoidable. I heard there was a late game item that halves the effect of it, but apart from that, you can never escape the mist. It is your bane. This is part of the reason why Touhou Fugyouseki is a very tough game in my opinion. It is most important to only use as many characters at one point as you absolutely need to, and perhaps even more so, to put all the ones you have on the field to good use while they're active. A bad situation may arise at any point, and if you've been inefficient, you may not have the right people to deal with it available. They might be stuck on recovery. Right now, let us shift our attention towards Yukari. She hasn't been doing a whole lot now, has she? Sitting on the left side of the screen, lazily dangling her tiny feet in the air. But in truth, Yukari is actually really important. In a way, you are Yukari in Touhou Fugyouseki. She is a sort of field commander to the girls and the heart piece of our group. It's also very interesting that outside of a mission, it doesn't mean anything in itself if all of the characters are eradicated. If someone gets KO'd or you withdraw them manually, they'll only be out of commission for 5 turns. Even if you have no one left on the field, if everyone's on that recovery bench, that is not how you lose this game. However, Yukari has her own hit points in the lower left corner. Right now, it reads 4 out of 5. Yeah, I've had the first sheep trap I encountered explode on me. That took one of them off. More on how to handle traps later. But yes, you always have to take good care of Yukari and not have enemies reach her, giving the game an element of the tower defense genre. A very small one admittedly. Yukari as the protagonist, that is a rare sight. So many fan games make her quite the scheming bitch. Sorry, no way to say this any nicer. It is refreshing to see her so different. We are finally about to start our mission. From the looks of it, we can choose either Sakuya or Marissa as the last participant. What you need to know here is that characters will always start a mission with the same health as when they entered the gap. Since our perfect maid is far more beat up than the ordinary magician, our choice here is a simple one. Let us go for it already, see what it'll look like in there. The answer to that is very crowded and dangerous. Wriggle's personality in this game seems to be quite ill-tempered. She is very angry and accusing to us, even though her portrait may not perfectly reflect that. On that note, I really like the artwork in Touhou Fugyouseki, portraits as well as sprites and animations. Said sprites always have a swaying motion to them while idle, making them feel so much more alive. Okay, the victory condition here is only to defeat Wriggle, but if we are to storm into the bulk of the enemy, we will be totally destroyed. We must be smart about this and whittle down their numbers. We are starting with the fast-moving but ultimately very weak Kedama. The most problematic piece of this puzzle, so to say, is the very sassy-looking Daijose in the back. Little Missy sure got some attitude. The deal with her is that if you combine her movement and attack ranges, she can hit someone who is 7 tiles away. That is very impressive. The only one in our team right now with this kind of reach is Sanae, and only with her spell too. Yeah, standard attacks and your spells do have different ranges. Spells tend to be the ones that go a little bit further, but that is only the rule. There are exceptions to this. Another noteworthy enemy here is the Shield Fairy. We currently have 2 of them in the center. They only move and attack 1 square ahead each, but they are very durable. Not even Reimu tends to one-shot them, and she is kind of your best character. Furthermore, they will always fully heal themselves if they're still alive at the end of their turn. So basically, they are devoted tanks for the purpose of other units taking cover behind them. In this case, their placement isn't too annoying, but Touhou Fugyouseki does some very crafty things with them, and then they can be an absolute pain, believe me. Now, I know we are taking our sweet time here, just please bear with me, I had to think a lot. Like I said, Touhou Fugyouseki is a very difficult game. I have already learned the hard way that you cannot afford to make bad moves. Yes, even in the early stages like this one. While we're waiting for the action, let us briefly listen to the soundtrack. Maybe you've already noticed it has actual lyrics.
This song is a fast song, isn't it? It moves right along, as you do, when you're feeling peppy.
You know, this very track does have a name, but I simply dub it the song that has to make absolutely certain you realize it is indeed a fast song. I thought it might have been stock music at first, but Team Camo, the circle that made this game, has released their own albums, so I think it's theirs, I'm pretty sure. Got to give them a big compliment here, they are very versatile in their work. Right now, things are finally moving again. We were somehow able to get Yomu right in front of the Daijosei, and are now rid of our biggest worry. The sad part about it all is that Yomu now finds herself right in the lion's den. And out of all the things she could suffer, it is a wriggle kick that finally takes her out. Yes, Wriggle's standard attack is the infamous wriggle kick. Legendarily powerful. Everything she hits with that is sure to punch escape and choose quit and retry. Even though we lost Yomu there, it is no big deal. Like I said before, having someone hit 0 HP does not have any lasting consequences, as long as we actually win our mission. And now it seems like Wriggle is exposed. With her movement of 4 and spell range of 2, Reimu could technically blast her with a fantasy seal this very round. Neat, an item. Enemies may randomly drop these. Here's also something else that's random. Sanae gets an extra turn this round. There is a small chance for her to do this, I believe it is 6%. There are several of these special dice rolls. Apart from extra, we have critical hits, a chance to counter an enemy's attack with your own, being able to hit multiple adjacent targets, and also tossing. Toss allows you to teleport an enemy to whatever space you choose. Anyway, our objective is complete, and apart from recruiting Wriggle, we are also in for some loot. You always get a whole lot of stuff for succeeding in a mission. We don't receive anything too extraordinary here, it seems, but what we get, it'll at least help us outfit Wriggle. And that brings us to something else that is so unconventional about this game. Its inventory system. The strip in the middle is a character's backpack. The dark squares cannot be used. What you do here is you simply drag and drop your equipment in there until you're out of room. All equipment will be 5 by 5 squares large, unless you do something about it, unless you compress it. Compressing will decrease the size of an item, while the effect stays all the same. Logically, any character can carry several more of these smaller items. Obviously, there is a catch. Compressing costs money. You only use money for compressing, there is no shop or anything in the game. Next we'll look at leveling up. Again, this is handled in an innovative way. Characters don't gather experience or just level up, only Yukari does in a way. You have a global experience pool, and you spend it on whoever you think needs or deserves it the most. Pretty involving. Maybe you noticed a strange shift in the playfield just then. That is because we used the advance function to move Yukari forward increasing the dungeon level and generally making the overworld more difficult. You are kind of forced to do this, or else you won't encounter any more dream gaps to go through. This advancing can also make other objects appear. In this case, we now have a black blob with 10% above it on screen. This is a tapir's magic circle, something you won't be so happy to see. The percentage will increase each turn, and if it goes high enough, it'll spit out tapir enemies. I don't know if anything special happens if it reaches a full 100%. I've never allowed it to do so, and I don't think I would like it. But yeah, that means that you can do something about it. And no, it's not just as easy as smashing it with your troops. You have to let Yukari summon a Shikigami for this. We have already done so. It is that blue pentagram t-shirt ghost. Shikigami cost experience to make, they automatically move forward without your direct control, and are the only way to interact with treasure chests, sheep traps, and of course, the tapir's magic circle. Enemies can attack and destroy Shikigami, so basically, they are an escort mission. Everybody loves escort missions, right? No. These ones, though, usually aren't so bad. You can make your Shikigami more durable if you spend more experience on them, and I strongly recommend you do. During my early play of this game, I only made Shikigami with 1 or 2 HP, and I so regretted it. Nowadays, I tend to pick the maximum of 4 HP, maybe 3 if I'm feeling very bold. Like I said, with a bunch of characters on watch duty, these escorts become manageable. While we safely lead this one to destroy the magic circle, hopefully at least, I want to say a little bit more on the developer, Team Camo. First off, Camo means duck, and that just simply amuses me somehow. Freaking ducks, man, they go quack. More importantly though, I called them versatile before for making music. That is only half of it. They have made games of several different genres. That is something very untypical among the Doujin scene. I'm noticing a lot of specialization in genre there. Their first game ever, I believe, was called Entirety Spell Timber, a Touhou flavored Puyo Puyo style game, a versus puzzler pretty much. They also delved into platforming with Chirno Climber, obviously an Ice Climbers clone. And we have the quasi-sequel of that, Chirno Climbers Mountaintop Brawl, which actually has the fusion of Ice Climbers and Super Smash Bros. Gameplay. I am honestly pretty impressed they're so happy to experiment, and that the games they make still turn out pretty well overall. I must admit here that I've only played Touhou Fugyouseki from them, but you can tell to a degree from just seeing a game if it's garbage or not. And they all seem pretty okay to me. I don't welcome those 2 Koakuma palette swaps up there. They're one of the more problematic enemies. Their strength is a very high resistance to magic. I have briefly mentioned elements of attack. There are only 2 of them in this game. Those would be physical and magical. Chirno, for example, only uses magical attacks, so does Letty, which is kind of unfortunate for us right now. Wriggle, on the other hand, is all physical. It helps to bring a balanced roster, at least whenever you're on the overworld, because you can never know which enemies will appear. That is about all I can tell you about the basic gameplay right now. Let us wrap things up by looking at the final unusual feature of the game. It has a jukebox you can mess with. See, the soundtrack of this game works like a playlist. If a track finishes as you play, it just goes to the next. Now, let's imagine you don't care for the song that has to make absolutely certain you realize it is indeed a fast song. You could just take that out of the playlist. You can also spice things up by shuffling the order. I appreciate this idea, it's not something you see very often. Well, our time for today is almost up, so I'd like to give a short verdict for this game. It is good, I like it a lot, and I can recommend it too. However, I can't recommend it just as strongly as some other Touhou RPGs, namely Labyrinth of Touhou 1 and 2, as well as The Genius of Sapphiros. Reason being, it can be frustrating in a way those aren't. You don't know who will be useful for a mission, and if you fail it, the dream gap will close and you'll have to wait for the next. Still, try it. I'm Gesche86, this was Touhou Fugyouseki. Bis bald!